I've always really appreciated artists who have a quality over quantity approach to their output. But rising above the odds is King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who might be my most listened to band of the last 10 years. And if you've written anything, if you've put out music or whatever artistic endeavor it is, you always have this little thing inside of you, the censor, the thing that's holding you back. And I think besides versatility, this band's strength to me is just that ability to let that filter go, to be completely spontaneous, and yet still manage to achieve such a high level of quality in this dizzying, prolific pace that seems to never end. The ideas just keep coming, and the discography is getting massive. Certainly one of my favorite modern bands, and I've just decided to go for it today. This isn't a tier list. This is a good old-fashioned album ranking from number 27 to 1. But before I get into it, make sure to also check out the Best of King Giz playlist down in the description box, and subscribe to the channel if you want a lot more new music finds in psychedelic rock, in alternative, indie, prog. So number 27 is a pretty fun but kind of naive, kind of shrill, at times garage rock album that is understandably so because it's their first album. It's 12 Bar Brews. They're already doing some promising things on this album, some hints at the musicality to come, but it's probably my least listened to Giz album, and I think they would only improve after this point. So this one, only for the fans. There are very few genres that King Giz could step into that I wouldn't be excited about, but a synth-pop excursion didn't have me pre-ordering. Number 26 has to be the Silver Chord. There are some moments here where some of their prog tendencies, where some of their pop sensibility won me over a little bit, but I just feel like this is a very functional genre. Like it's meant for a certain environment, a certain setting. It sounds like a rave, like a party. So the typical kind of cerebral headphone listening that I'm doing just doesn't really connect. I didn't mean to dump on electronica, but number 25 happens to be the other electronic album, and that is Made in Timeland. It's pretty fun while it's on, but it just doesn't occupy any space in my mind. I don't remember it. And at number 24 is another older Giz album that happens to be in this lower part of the list. It's their Western album that has a narrative that runs throughout, a spoken word piece that is really moody, really a vibe, really just captures that tone and that genre really well. But again, it just doesn't stick with me.
They named the boy Jepson O'Brien, but the natives and the frontiersmen called him Blue because of his eyes.
At number 23 is an album I feel very similarly about as 12 Bar Brews. Probably my first very controversial pick, and that is Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. I just feel like every single aspect of this album, from the production to the songwriting and so on, are things that they would just improve as they went on. And if you weren't already mad enough, then I'm going to take out another sacred cow here at number 22, the band's bold step into thrash metal with Infest the Rat's Nest. To me, this is a much more impressive album than it is an enjoyable one. It is very impressive, but it is a little bit emotionally one note. But props to them for stepping into this with such conviction, into a genre that tends to be so, at least stereotypically, hypercritical, purist. Number 22 to 21, there's a jump there. There's a delta, at least in my enjoyment of these albums. And number 21, I just have a real soft spot for this album. It's kind of like the island of misfit toys. Like, I love them. They're kind of oddballs, aptly called oddments. This is from 2014. It's their fourth album, and they really were just getting started here. This is their scuzziest sounding album. It's very DIY. And at 32 minutes and a lot of short songs, it is a little bit thin on ideas, but it really shows the melodic, the songwriting knack that was always there. I love songs like It's got old, stressin', work this time. The Hot Wax is like stuck in my head all the time. I don't know what it is about that song. It's just such a sticky idea, just the wax, And Homeless Man and Adidas might be their most convincing finger-picked folk number. Rolling in the top 20, which I don't think I've ever said for any artist ever that there's a top 20 that's actually good, is the Jam Band album from 2022, one of 3 albums from what's known as Giztober. It's Ice Planets, Mushrooms, and then some other stuff. Ice, Death, Planets, Lungs, Mushrooms, and Lava. This is their jam band album, like the most extended jams, the most kind of jazz fusion in their sound. On paper, a really good match for me. Like, I'm into jazz fusion. I like a lot of bands in that space. I don't know what it is. This one hasn't had the longevity of some of these other albums, but maybe I just need to dig further. This, amongst any other album, feels like one where there are probably layers that I might be missing. All right. Let's go. I feel like I'm at halftime. I need somebody to kick me around, give me a little pep talk, spray some water in my wounds. Number 19 is an album I've ended up liking a lot because it's new and it's one of my favorite of the year so far, which I feel like says a lot with it being at number 19. Phantom Island. Jump from the highest cliff. Yeah. I was a little bit disappointed by this, and I feel like it goes to the orchestra. I wanted it to be more of a central component to the sound and the composition, especially, instead of what feels more like a really nice ornament. Not really shaping and dictating compositional choices, but just complementing them. And we hop back only a year with number 18 on the list, last year's Hog Wild Flight B 741. The album brings back that blues rock sound, that boogie rock sound from Fishing for Fishies, and Stu McKenzie said it was their most collaborative album, at least to that point, with just every single band member singing, bringing ideas, and it just sounds like a weekend with the boys. It's really a companion piece to Phantom Island. It's really fun while it's on. Song for song, a bottom tier Giz album for me. At number 17 is the Sample Platter All You Can Eat double album Omnium Gatherum, which I've seen rated super high by some. If you're new to Giz, yeah, I feel like this is a really good place to start. I would listen to the whole thing. It feels like every well-known sound from the band is represented here. You even get some rapping. You even get this Santana-esque Latin rock tune. Having Grim Reaper and then Presumptuous and then Predator X back to back to back, that says it all. Overall, I find it a little bit bloated, but there are some A+ moments if you're willing to sit through the whole thing. The opener, The Dripping Tap, is a microcosm for the album. It's a really fantastic, incredible 6-minute song, but it happens to be 18. At number 16 is a wicked, progressive thrash metal album from the band. It's Petrodragonic Apocalypse. King Giz is a great album in the sense that if you're not a super fan of a certain genre, they are a great just gateway band into that space where you end up liking their thrash metal album better than most thrash metal albums. And after listening back to this, I think one aspect of their versatility that doesn't get enough credit is Stu McKenzie's voice. He just sounds phenomenal. He's a beast on this album. I love the wicked playing on this thing. I think it's some of their flashiest playing, some of the best drum work from Michael Kavanagh. This next one is what used to be a top 10 Giz album for me, but I feel like it's sunk a little bit over the years as they've topped this long-form jazz psych style, and that is 2014's Quarters. 4 songs, exactly 10 minutes and 10 seconds each. Certainly one of their most laid-back albums. I think of Flight B741 and this one as the ultimate Weekend with the Boys. The River has always been in their live rotation, and for really good reason. It's just such a chill, such a relaxed vibe to that song, just an infectious repetition, but I feel like some of the other tracks on this thing don't get their flowers. There's a great balance here of very spacious, drawn out jams with super memorable pop hooks. Plus this vinyl variant, which is just spectacular here. Check this out. This is like exploding birthday cake. Just want to dig in. Also, this thing like folds out. It's like a big poster. Come on. At number 14 was one of my, and I'm sure a lot of people's, gateway to the band, and certainly a milestone for the band, and that is 2014's I'm in Your Mind Fuzz. This album really established what I think is their core sound. You got psychedelic rock meets garage rock meets krautrock meets prog and pop. For as versatile as they are, I think that is the heart of Giz. And, you know, immediate offshoots of that are like acid rock and stoner rock. And this album does all of that in just a perfectly flowing 42 minutes. It's the platonic ideal of a King Giz album. And I still love it for that, even if I still think they went on to improve every aspect. At number 13 is another album like I'm in Your Mind Fuzz that makes strong use of a motoric beat. It's a strong component of their sound overall. This is an album that grew on me considerably in the last month while I've been re-listening to all these, and that's 2022's Laminated Denim. Potential is all that's left. I wrote this album off for a long time, and I'm not sure why. For some reason, it just kind of floats under the radar in King Giz discussions, maybe because it feels more jammy, more off the cuff, more certainly less considered than Changes. But this has been on repeat in the last couple weeks. It's 2 tracks. They're both about 15 minutes, so I think it's a pretty short album overall, but it's perfect for just cooking dinner, doing some chores, throw this thing on. It's certainly my favorite of these jam band albums, and more psychedelic in its approach than the more jazz fusion stuff on Ice Death. Number 12 has become one of the band's defining albums. I consistently see this in people's top 10, top 5. It's definitely one of their most ambitious, just overall in its concept and just the lengths they had to go through to make this album, and that is Flying Microtonal Banana. This is the band's desert rock album, and it just works so perfectly for that microtonal sound, bringing Eastern scales and a perfectly compatible Turkish bent to the whole sound that just works so well with the psychedelia, with the krautrock. I saw a review that called this a singular balance of anarchy and accessibility. Couldn't have said it better myself. This band has such an ability to make the complex, the dense, the ridiculous so accessible. The Middle Eastern instruments brought in for this thing, the custom instruments built for the album to play in microtones with a band and be in sync and in tune together. I mean, it shows their exploratory spirit, it shows their curiosity, and it's just honestly really inspiring. And they finally went back to that microtonal sound on the combo of the self-titled KG album and LW album, and my number 11 has to go to the second album, LW. This is more of a smorgasbord type of album, even though it has that consistent through line of the microtones, but there's such great stuff on this thing, really unique sound. I feel like it's kind of a refresher, a palate cleanser, this moment in the KG discography, where it wasn't so highly conceptual, but instead just a nice mix of tunes. You know, they took that approach to an album, which I always appreciate, I always love. I can't get enough of that run of tracks from Static Electricity to See Me. At number 10 is a similar odds and ends collection of an album that doesn't cling to a particular shtick, particular concept, and it's not the last one like it on my list. And that is one of the best B-side collection albums I think I've ever heard. It's the last from their run in 2017 of 5 albums, and that's Gumboot Soup. It's funny going back to this album because you really hear how far their production chops have come. But about half of this album is my favorite Giz ever. Songs like, the softer, jazzier ones, Last Oasis, Superposition especially. Absolutely love that sound. Top Giz tracks for me. Down the Sink, Barefoot Desert, Beginner's Luck. You can tell a lot of the sensibilities of that Sketches era writing went into this album. Lots of killer songs on this thing, and I always prefer a batch of unrelated but killer songs over a perfectly executed concept album, just personally. Which brings me to my favorite mixed bag variety pack Giz album. Number 9 is KG, and I always think of Kevin Garnett. I think this album, in its variety, serves as one of the best introductions to the band. No doubt it's got some of their catchiest stuff, and it's just lighter fare overall. It's nothing too heady. Automation and Minimum Brain Size are prototypical King Giz songs with the serpentine riffs and the proggy interplay between guitar and bass. And the band decided to break out its Turkish club banger in Intrasport, one of the most unique songs in the catalog and super surprising even for this band. I mean, Odd Life, Straws in the Wind, complete bangers, and some of Ambrose's best vocal moments too. At number 8 is the album that's grown on me more than any other King Giz album since its release, and for some reason, when it was released 4 years ago, I kind of wrote it off as a mid at best Giz album. But Butterfly 3000 has just fluttered its way right into my top 10 at number 8. This is a dream pop, a neo-psych album with a strong emphasis on these bright, bouncing synth arpeggios and major key melodies. And it was written in the midst of trying to follow up Polygon Wonderland from 2017, so it has a lot of tricky rhythms to it. I've heard a lot of prog pop, it's kind of my bag, but never with this unique chipper synth pop approach. It's a very unique, very special album that's just perfect for July. And is Interior People low key their best song? Thing goes hard. At number 7 is an album that on paper I want absolutely nothing to do with. It's an apocalypse tale, kind of technologically focused, that's told and played out by these B horror movie characters, and just a completely revolting and ridiculous plot. And told rather explicitly by a bunch of narrators. Like, there's a whole lot of spoken word. Usually I hate that, but not on this album, not on Murder of the Universe. This album's amazing. This is kind of a prog version of Nonagon's Breakneck Pace. It's kind of got that going on, and that first suite of songs, the Altered Beast suite, some of the most exciting stuff the band's ever done. And like I said, I usually hate spoken word. I think it's at minimum a very big opportunity cost to even have it on an album, but Leah Senior is like the perfect voice for this kind of thing. It's just so bleak. And this album has the best example of Stu just saying, yep, okay, took a little break, I'm back now. Had to, 27 albums. I'm not going to do that whole thing. I got to eat dinner. I got to take a walk. And number 6 was an album that Stu said was their most considered at that time. Every note, every sound just poured over compared to their typical spontaneity. And that is the third album from Giztober back in 2022, Changes. Brilliant album. I love how they're able to take this simple chord progression and just adds so much variety, so much complexity to it through subtle little variations. There's also a hint of R&B in here, which is something they've done going all the way back to Oddments. There's always been a little soul in these guys. The song Gandhi is a huge highlight, but the whole album is so re-listenable. I just never get tired of it. And sliding in at number 5 is kind of their 70s children's storybook theme album. It's really their jazz psych album. That's 2017 Sketches of Brunswick East. The bass lines are out of control on this album. The sound effects, the jazz sounds and instruments that they bring into it are just so unique across their discography. And I remember being really excited at the time because I loved Paper Mache Dream Balloon, and I was just worried they were never going to get as silly as that album. And silly in like a instrumental palette sense, This one just has a lightness, a fluffiness that is so psychedelic and so fun and bouncy and just really tailor-made for me. And it turns out that I'm kind of a soft King Giz guy, because at number 4 is another super fun, super light, super friendly album with Fishing for Fishies. Besides my number 1, this has got to be my most listened to King Giz album, and probably one of my most listened to albums just in general. I find it just infinitely re-listenable. It's so fun. I love the individuality of the songs, like Sketches, where they each kind of stand alone, have their own identity, but have this through line of kind of this fun blues boogie rock sound. The Bird Song is a personal favorite with its shuffling beat, its syncopated piano, and this thing would be on any fantasy set list for me for King Giz. It's just a toe tapper. It really is the embodiment of this guy right here, this album. You'll notice the descriptions are becoming a little less in the head, a little more in the heart, because these are the albums I feel. And it's funny how these are going together, but number 3 is another softie. It's Paper Mache Dream Balloon from way, way back for the band in 2015. I have such a vivid memory of discovering this album, discovering King Giz around this time, and walking around on my college campus at the time, and just every sight, every little moment and little, seemingly mundane thing stands out in my mind because of this album. At the time, I was just thrilled that they went in this direction and showed their versatility, showed their musicality when, they were making albums that were a little bit heavier, a little bit grimier and more garage. And then they just decided to go off to, Stu's mom's farm and record this. This is their folk jazz masterpiece, where Sketches brought the electric jazz side of things. This brings like the pure folk, rural, bucolic side. I love the color palette of what they got going on in this thing. I love the clay guys. I mean, come on, it's beautiful. This album's such a vibe, but it's also a set of brilliant songs, which makes it possible to do that suite at the end where they're all wrapped up and you go through each melody from each song. They're each so memorable and distinct. I just love this album. It is absolutely fantastic. It checks every box for me, but there are a top 2. And I described I'm in Your Mind Fuzz as kind of the platonic ideal of a King Giz album. And if that's true, the number 2 is like, the Rosetta Stone. It's the event horizon, it's like the apotheosis of King Giz. And that is, from way back, 2015 again, Nonagon Infinity. It's impossible not to make the joke, but Nonagon Infinity will open the door to King Giz for you. I feel that this is a true representation of the band's originality. It's what they bring in their humanity to music, whereas, they try on a lot of other hats, a lot of other sounds and genres as kind of a fun, gimmicky thing. And it is fun. It is fantastic. But this one is like, this is the heart. And you feel that in just the sincerity of these songs. They have a lot of irony, of silliness in their music, but This one just feels very, very them. It's a continuous, again, very motoric beat jam that goes into different variations on the theme here and there, each one more brilliant than the next. And always carrying you back home, carrying you back to that root jam that is so satisfying. Those are a lot of kind words about a lot of fabulous albums. I feel like my fanboy is really showing. But here in the darkness of the night, we must announce number 1, my favorite King Gizzard album, 2017's Polygon Wonderland. If you're a prog fan, then this is your Gizzard album. They've never been trickier. They've never been more intricate with their rhythms and their polyrhythms. But besides rhythms, I think the harmony is just as brilliant on this album, especially between the guitar and the bass. Like I said, that interplay, some of the intervals that are represented here, there's a lot of density of information going on. But similar to Nonagon, there is a real sincerity. There's a real emotional resonance, a real emotional authenticity coming through on this album that I don't necessarily feel on every Giz album. The sinister moments on this thing, like Inner Cell, like Horology, like Loyalty, are just, man, cold, icy, but at the same time so triumphant. Crumbling Castle is like a thesis for the band. If there's like one song to check out, it's probably that one. And I'm just such a fan of melodies, harmonies, rhythms, of the form of music itself, the core elements that this gets me. This is all of that for me in every single moment. A top 10 King Giz song playlist for me would end up looking a lot like Polygon Wonderland. And so for all those reasons and many more, this is my favorite album. But here we are at the end of 27 albums, and I'm sure many more to come. I was looking for a convenient spot to assess their discography, but we're probably getting 27 more. Please let me know and share with me what you love about this band, maybe your top 5 albums and just what you think they bring to music and the conversation overall. I want to hear it all, so just let me know below. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, thank you so much for watching.